this morning, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reportedly used his personal phone to disclose information about U.S. military operations in Yemen. This is a different group chat situation. This is another Signal group chat where he shared sensitive information to sources with knowledge of the matter. Tell NBC News 13 people were in the chat, including Hegseth's wife and brother. The sources say Hegseth sent the messages after an aide warned him to not share sensitive information on Signal. Okay, this comes a month after the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, revealed the Trump administration accidentally added him to a Signal group chat about Yemen attack plans. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz has taken responsibility for creating that message chain. According to the New York Times, the other group chat was started by Hegseth. The secretary shared essentially the same information in both groups, including the flight schedules for the military jets that targeted the Houthis.
Oh, my gosh.
The information was reportedly sent to both chats at roughly the same time. What's going on here? 4 people familiar with the chat tell the New York Times that Hegseth's chat was named Defense Team Huddle, and it did not include any other cabinet-level officials. It was initially created as a forum for discussing routine, administrative, or scheduling information. Sources tell the paper Hegseth did not usually discuss sensitive military operations. Hegseth's chat included his wife, who is a former Fox News producer and not a Defense Department employee. His brother and personal lawyer were also in the chat. They both have jobs in the Pentagon, but it's not known why they would need to know anything about attack plans in Yemen. In a statement, the chief Pentagon spokesperson denied any classified information was shared in either of the Signal chats. Let's bring in one of the reporters of that piece, New York Times reporter Greg Jaffe. Also with us, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. His military career spans more than 3 decades of service, including as the commanding general of the U.S. Army Europe and the 7th Army. So we'll get to that in a moment. But first, Mr. Jaffe, more on your reporting. I almost felt like we were reporting on the first Signal scandal. It seems so similar. Tell us more about who he included in this chat and why perhaps this is the same thing happening all over again.
Yeah, so
worse.
the chat, as you noted, included his wife, his brother, his personal attorney, and most of his inner circle, which has been in a state of tumult these last couple of weeks. And I think it's worth noting it's a very inexperienced inner circle, and he's a very inexperienced secretary. So it's a group of people who hadn't been used to operating at this level of government. And I think that's the other kind of key point here. He doesn't have a lot of experience at senior officials, and he's surrounded himself with people who also kind of lack experience.
You know, General, I was just a little congressman, one of 435. So the Armed Services Committee, we would get information, and we understood we didn't tell a soul. It didn't tell a soul. Nobody, not even staff members. Not family, certainly not family members. I'm just curious, you've operated actually on such a higher level where the lives of our men and women in uniform were at risk if information got out. I mean, even on my small level, this is so hard to comprehend. I wonder how shocking it must be for you, who understands this sort of recklessness could lead to lost American lives.
It is pretty shocking, Joe. What I'll say to you, yes, I've been given information from confidential all the way up to top secret code word. And the rules are when individuals are given access to national security information, intelligence, there are 2 ironclad standards. You protect classified, critical, and sensitive information, and you only share it with those who have a clearance and with a legitimate need to know. And you certainly don't share it with your wife, your family members, or those you're trying to impress. Doing anything else betrays trust, and it violates the standards that all military personnel and most government officials learn. When someone with access to sensitive information passes it to a favored journalist, a friendly voice in the media, a spouse or a family member, someone without clearance, without a key role in the operations, and without a need to know, that's not patriotism, that's performance politics. It's reckless and it's dangerous. It risks operations, it endangers lives, and it weakens U.S. credibility around the world. It also sends the key message that keeping our nation secure is optional, and the people that are doing this truly fully don't understand what our enemies can collect under from a resource like a Signals app on a private phone. It's just amazing to me. It's infuriating, and I think most people who have clearances understand the same thing.
Well, and General, here we're starting with the semantics game again with the initial statements from the DOD that this was not classified information. Have you ever known the scheduling of an operation, when fighter jets are going to be taking off, when they're going to be making their strikes? Have you ever known that in all of your years of not being the most highly classified information that a SecDef would hold?
Yeah, they're playing word games with this, Joe. It may not have a classification stamp on the top that says secret or top secret or classified, but it's critical and sensitive information. And that falls under the category of the Department of Defense regulations, too. You don't have to have a stamp on the top of a piece of paper to understand that anything like this could fall into the hands of our enemies or even forces on the ground, and they can put pieces of a puzzle together. That's what intelligence folks do. You know, it's fascinating to me. We have such tremendous people in our intelligence communities and all of the agencies, from the military agencies all the way up to the CIA. And it's fascinating to me that every single one of them would tell you that our enemies can take these pieces of a puzzle, put them together, and determine things like just the way people talk, the way they act. When I was in Europe, or when I was in many jobs, we used to give commanders, you know, one of my intelligence folks would give me a black book before I went to have an engagement with a foreign dignitary or a foreign army. It was collections on those individuals to give me a better advantage. So we can talk about the art of the deal, but when you're talking about the art of engagement, it gives you an advantage when you have intelligence about what people are doing, about their personal habits, about their ego and their hubris. And I got to tell you, the information on these chats that are being shown by Jeff Goldberg and others are just staggering. It's jaw-dropping to me that anybody can say that's not important information that our enemies can gain a lot from.
So to broaden this out a little bit, Jonathan Lemire, I know you're going to go to Greg on his reporting, but to add to this, the Secretary of Defense's wife and brother, I believe there's been reporting that they have been included on some meetings as well. So the question is, what is their role?
Yeah, there's been questions about just the setup at the Pentagon surrounding the Secretary of Defense, who appears to be very isolated in the building. His wife is there, his brother is there, other close confidants nearby at all times. Why there's been eyebrows raised about how his wife has been in sort of very sensitive meetings with foreign governments. We should note, though, the Pentagon put out a statement about this. We haven't heard from the Secretary of Defense himself, except a Twitter reply to the Democrats, like the political organization. He attacked them simply saying, "Your agenda is illegals, trans, and DEI." That's his comment. He made a political swipe at the Democratic Party as opposed to addressing the matter at hand. That's all we've heard from the Secretary of Defense. So, Greg, terrific reporting. Tell us more also about this moment at the Pentagon where there's been a wave of high-profile resignations, people working with the Secretary, one of whom wrote an op-ed for Politico last night saying that the building is in chaos, suggesting that President Trump push out the Secretary of Defense. We haven't heard anything from the president just yet. But talk to us about this moment there at DOD.
Yeah, it's really unlike anything I've seen in the kind of 20 years that I've been following the building. To have the secretary's inner circle kind of turn on each other this way, that's really, really unprecedented. And as far as I can tell, it's the infighting is not really over policy or anything like that. It's just kind of, I think, who has the secretary's ear, how meetings should be run. It's just a really, really chaotic environment. And you get the sense that there's just a lack of process around the secretary in terms of just how to run the office on a day-to-day basis. Just basic function is not happening.
You know, this doesn't happen without a context. You've had a purge of the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, any number of other 4-stars. Now you've had this. Mark, I was really curious. You know, two things come to mind. One is, what is morale like now? You know, you've got obviously civilian primacy, but you know, you have a civilian running the Pentagon who's violating rules that if any of the people under his command did, they would be stripped of rank and they'd be out of their jobs or worse. So to what extent does this matter in a sense? Do you actually think readiness is being affected by this, that recruitment's being affected by this, discipline? What is your sense of, because what's going on is so unprecedented and so wrong. What do you see as the consequences?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, it's certainly going to affect our alliances, because when you see this kind of leakage and just a lack of responsibility and a lack of adherence to standards on what you share or don't share with intelligence, alliances are going to stop sharing things with us. They have already done that. In terms of the morale, I can't comment on that because I'm not in the Pentagon, but I have talked to others in the force who are in the operational army, and they're shaking their head. They're saying, this is ridiculous. Everyone should know this. Why is this individual doing these kind of things? And most, even the younger members of our military, understand the implications of these kind of things being leaked. They are repeatedly told, don't use your personal cell phone when you're in a government building. Don't pass information that could be sensitive on your personal cell phone. The other thing that I'd comment that, the military or the government pays a lot of money for encrypted devices and things that can pass this kind of information, from SIPRnet computers to the kinds of cell phones that are encrypted. And even though Signal's app is allegedly encrypted, I will tell you for sure, because I've seen it, any government in the world can break into that encryption and find out information from it. So people who think they're smart and say, hey, I'm just going to use Signals and it'll be encrypted and it'll disappear in a week, that's great, but it can still be hacked by government sources. And then